Hey, Lois.
Hi, hey, Rabbi. Hi.
Hi.
A friend of mine sent me a connection to, it's called Valley Beit Midrash, or I think it's California. I don't know. But anyway, tomorrow, Rabbi Cardoza is doing a Zoom thing on whether the Holocaust was a punishment from God. So.
Interesting.
Right.
Valley Beit Midrash, you said?
Valley Beit Midrash. Yeah. If you just.
Very interesting. He always picks provocative questions to discuss. What do you think he's going to say? He's going to say, yes, it was a punishment. And he knows what it was a punishment for.
Oh, no. I think there'll be lots of qualifications. I don't know. I'll show you in a minute. I'll show you. Okay.
Oh, Rabbi Harsh?
Yeah.
If a Sefer Torah is found to be puzzle, the stopper made a mistake or something happened, does it lose its Kedusha?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it definitely, when you say it loses its Kedusha, what would that mean?
I don't know.
I mean, for sure, you have to put it in Geniza, right? So that should be an indication that it doesn't lose its sanctity. If you have to, wouldn't you agree? If you have to put in Geniza, that it has some degree of sanctity. I'm not sure what it means to say it's a holy item, other than to say that it requires special handling. What other indication is there that it is a holy object? So that's why I'm thinking, if it was irredeemably puzzle, let's say, it would still need to be put in Geniza, which would require the same handling that it's getting, the same degree of special care. Unless you could find some other ramification of the Kedusha, but I don't know another one off the bat. So theoretically, I'm going to say it does not. But to further study it, you'd have to first define what is the Kedusha of a Sefer Torah. What does it mean to say it is holy in the first place? And then we'd have a better sense. But to me, the fact that you still have to put it in a Geniza indicates that it's still in some degree sacred.
But did we come upon an agreement as what it means to be sacred in the first place?
No, that's what I'm saying. You have to define that. That's what I'm saying. What does it mean to say it's a sacred object? So I'm suggesting to you that that the ramification, what we mean by sacred object is maybe that it has to be handled with some kind of extra care.
Okay. It's an operational definition.
I'm assuming. I mean, you could say it, because the word kadosh can mean particularly set aside for some use of with God or something. But but you could say that about a lot of objects. They aren't necessarily. They don't. I mean, like you could say that about a mitzvah object too, but mitzvah objects don't require the same degree of care that a
mezuzah case is.
Right. So the only reason a mezuzah case might require some kind of care is because the mezuzah is considered written Torah. But if you have an object, let's say a esrog case or a tefillin zekel, or something like that, they don't get the extra degree of care. That's something which is called, they call it a davar shebekadusha, a matter of sanctity, that it somehow is, it's somehow related to the fact that it is in fact Torah, that is written Torah. So tefillin,
how does tefillin differ from mezuzah?
no, they don't. Tefillin,
Okay.
tefillin, mezuzah, and Sefer Torah all have these, are part of this special category. But a talis bag or a talis does not. A lulav holder does not. They are considered like a mitzvah item, but they're not considered. They don't have this category called davar shebekadusha. But again, when you talk about how is the sanctity manifest, I'm assuming that because it's really the only way I can think of is that it has to be handled with a certain kind of deference. But that handling with a certain kind of deference continues whether it's complete or it's not complete. So that's my first thought on it. Obviously, we have to research it to see if there's any other ramification of it being called holy. And that's where we would go. We have to, what does it mean to say it's holy? And what are the ramifications of it being holy? Yeah, but my first thought is, even after it is puzzle, it still has to be treated with great deference. That would indicate that there's some manner of kedusha or something that's still attached. Rabbi Soloveitchik, Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik, of blessed memory, suggested that the reason that people are buried is because people are a kind of vessel for Torah. And so the same requirements for bearing a Torah apply to people, and they apply for similar reasons. So that, I'm guessing that's the expression of the sanctity, but I'm not.
I remember one of my, I forgot which rabbi, but he said that a human being has more kedusha than a Sefer Torah.
Now, I know they say, the Gemara says, Hane Bavloi Tipshoi, those foolish Babylonians, they stand up for a Sefer Torah, but they don't stand up for a
Scholar.
human being, right? But again, I don't know if that means kedusha, more kedusha. It goes back to defining that kedusha, because you may not be standing because of the kedusha. I don't know. You may be standing because there's some kind of mitzvah to honor it. Because, like, do your parents have more kedusha than you do? Not necessarily. It's just that you have to stand for your parents. You have to show them honor. So that goes back to that. We have to get a definition of what is the sanctity, how do you measure that sanctity, and how is it manifest? And that's where, I guess that's where we would go on that issue. It's a good one. It's a good one. Okay. So yesterday we were talking, the last thing we were talking about is making sure that those people that are impure are not connected, are not in the the holy areas, what we call the divine camp, and today I was going to look at Rav Shimshon Fall Hirsch about that. So I'm just going to do a quick thing here. Okay. So here. Okay. So this is this is with reference to the mitzvah to send out people that are impure from the camp. And in the Torah, it's mentioned in Naso, the Torah portion of Naso. After discussing, so this is by, his name is Rabbi Matityahu Clark, and it is characterized as a brief Dvar Torah on the parsha based on Rav Shimshon Fall Hirsch's commentary. Hirsch at the table. After discussing the formation of tribes and people for marching and camping purposes, the Torah introduces operational details and specific cases as to how these formations would work. The first case is that of people sent out of the organized camp because of various conditions of impurity. God tells Moshe that because of his presence in the camp, his with a capital H. So God is telling Moshe that because he, the divine presence, is in the camp, the people must be commanded to send out of their midst individuals who may contaminate the camp with any condition of impurity. There were three precincts or areas of Jewish life in the desert experience and later on in the city of Jerusalem. The inner precinct was the Mishkan tabernacle, which was the center of Jewish religious life. Immediately surrounding the Mishkan was Machane Leviim, the camp of the Levites who serviced the Mishkan. The outer circle was Machane Yisrael, consisting of the 12 tribes of Israel. Based on the phrase Asher Ani Shochein B'tocham, Hirsch concludes that God was present in all three areas of Jewish living and activity. However, there remains a difference in the Kedusha, the sanctity of each area, with the Mishkan having the most Kedusha, and the third, the tribal area, the least. The word Shochein is from the root Shin Chaf Nun, which is to dwell. The word Machane is from the root Chet Nun He, which means to rest temporarily. The word B'tocham is from the root Tov Vav Chaf Sofit, to center. The word here is used in the plural, serving as the basis of Rabbi Hirsch's conclusion that God's presence can be found in all parts of the camp. The word Kedusha is from the word Kuf Dalet Shin, which means to dedicate all resources to morality and holiness. The first of the two verses quoted refers to three categories of tuma, contamination. You have the leper / tsarua, one who suffers from gonorrhea / zav, and one who's had contact with the dead, tamei lenefesh. Obviously, there are physical differences in the manifestation of these categories, but the social status of those who are tamei differs according to a type of contamination as well. The word tamei or tuma is from the word tof tes mem aleph, to contaminate. The word sarua is from the word tzadi reish ayin, or to erupt. The disease is identified as an eruption of the skin. The word zav is from zayin bet hey, which means to flow in unusual pressured circumstances. The word nefesh is from the word nefesh, which means to return to spiritual repose. The most stringent category of contamination is sarua, because it impacts on a person who simply entered a house that has been declared contaminated. The person entering becomes contaminated, is declared a metzora, because of the seriousness of his contamination. This person is meant to be sent out from all these areas of Jewish life. Now, he's talking about two separate things. So ra'at, which is this affliction, not only is affliction of the skin, it's also an affliction of clothing, or an affliction of the house. So the first statement that he made, that by simply entering the house, you are declared contaminated, that's if it is a house that has sarat. He's just showing you that sarat is incredibly impactful. Even if it's sarat of the house and somebody's just in the house, they are impacted by it. But an actual metzora, somebody who has the full-blown condition where he has to be sent out of the three camps, this is talking about a person whose skin has been contaminated, and therefore, when he's declared a metzora, he has this status. Because of the seriousness of this contamination, this person is to be sent from all three of the areas of Jewish life. The second category is the zav, is less serious and is barred from the two inner circles, but is allowed in the third, which is the camp where the main tribes of Israel camp. And the third and least stringent is the person who came in contact with a dead body. That person is barred only from the innermost circle, which is the Mikdash area, and is allowed in the Levite and tribal circles. So again, when they were moving through the desert, you had those three areas. You had the sanctuary, you had what was called the Levite area, and then you had the general tribal area. Once the Jewish people are in the land of Israel, you don't have these same kind of distinctions, but you still do have what is called the Mikdash, which is the sanctuary. The mitzvah that we're talking about is the mitzvah to make sure that somebody who is tamei is sent out of the mikdash area. In the time of the Mishkan, there were further considerations, and also even in the time of the mikdash, for the Mitzorah does have to go. The Mitzorah does have to leave the cities, the inhabited areas. The one who has the skin, the skin ailment that's called tzara'at. The other people, like let's say you came in contact with a dead body, or let's say a woman is menstruant, they don't have to leave anywhere. They just they can't be in the mikdash, they can't be in the Beit HaMikdash, but they don't have to leave their otherwise living space. But it is true that a Mitzorah does. Okay. The word tishalchu is from the word shin lamed chet, which means to send out. Hirsch sees symbolic importance in the requirements for distancing these use. I mean, we have to, some of these words, contaminated individuals from the respective camps. Maybe a better word could be used. He looks to the Jewish sources that provide instance of these contaminations and concludes that each represents a type of lapse in proper Jewish living. The Mitzorah is associated with the sins of social defection and therefore is barred from contact with the total Jewish community. So we often associate the Mitzorah with Lashon Hara, with harmful speech, and but that also is a kind of representative transgression of a larger body of transgressions, which are between man and man. The Zav is related bodily problem. The Zav and its related bodily problems is associated with sexual impropriety and therefore is barred from the group whose role requires the highest level of spirituality. The Levites interact with matters of Kedusha and therefore must be free of any sexually related contamination. And the Tamei Lenefesh, the person who became impure because of contact with the dead, is excluded only from the Mishkan area, is an expression of the Jewish attitude towards life and death. It is as a living being that a person is able to express his free will and his godlike disposition. Although even in death, the soul of man retains its vibrancy as it returns to its maker, the dead body has nothing to do with man's exalted role in God's world. And therefore, one who comes in contact with a dead body is to be excluded from the premises that are the sanctuary of God. That is his summation of Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch's opinion. Obviously, Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch speaks of this at a greater length and with more poetry than that. But Rav Hirsch says at one point that, especially as the Jews leave Egypt, they are not simply leaving the physical confines of Egypt, but they're leaving what was the theology of Egypt. And part of the theology of Egypt is that in death, a person achieves their fullest expression and their greatest opportunity to commune with the gods, etc. And so the Torah is emphasizing the opposite. The Torah wants us to understand that service of God is fully expressed in life, the life that we're living now. And the opportunity to come close to God is very much present. And this is also something expressed by Rabbi Yehuda Halevi in the Kuzari, where he suggests that if somebody becomes a prophet, they are experiencing a kind of communing with the divine, which is the fullest expression of the human project. that dying is not going to get you closer to God than you could get through, let's say, prophecy. And that it's important to emphasize that what God wants from us in this life is the most robust connection to him, and that connection is available. And therefore, this is Rabbi Hirsch suggests that the Torah will sometimes have laws for the purpose of making this point, to remind us that we are as we live on this earth, we are able to have the most profound connection with God, and that it's not just about death. So the cult of death, which may have been very present in Egyptian theology, is very much rejected by the Torah, and death itself is therefore in some held at bay to some degree, especially around the Mikdash. And therefore, you have laws like the fact that the Kohanim are not supposed to come in contact with the dead. They're not supposed to have overt signs of mourning when they're doing the service in the Mishkan, to kind of exaggerate or call our attention to life in its most profound expression. We dim death, as it were. So that would be this mitzvah number 31, to make sure to send out those people who represent tuma or impurity. Even other forms, in other places he talks about this, that really all manner of what we call impurity are somehow connected to death in some way. And they this is not a simple thing. They're like each aspect of how we treat purity and impurity might come back to this idea, but in a different way. So here we're sending it out. We're sending the Tameh person out because they are now representative of this kind of contact with death in some manner or form. And we don't want them in the Mishkan because it distracts from the message of the Mishkan, which is a relationship with God in life. So you could say that about this mitzvah. Why is it that, for instance, when you come in contact with the dead, you step away for 7 days of impurity? That also might be related to this notion, but it's from the perspective of the person. It's not about that's not about what it looks like on the outside or the message that's being given. That might be a way of dealing with the impact of the trauma. When I come in contact with death, I'm very impacted by it, and therefore I might need to step back a little bit and give it an opportunity to recover before I re-engage with life. It may be something like that with menstruation also. What we consider the impurity associated with menstruation might be a stepping back to engage, to sort of revivify after an encounter with a loss of life that is represented, or loss of potential life that's represented by menstruation. So you could go through each one of these, and he does to some degree, Rabbi Hirsch. you could go through each one of these, and somehow it comes back to this notion of service of God in life, but not every detail is exactly the same. Okay. Okay, so this next mitzvah is the mitzvah to show honor to Kohanim. So this is mitzvah number 32. This is that he commanded us to honor the seed of Aaron, to adorn and glorify them, and that we should place them on a level of priority and precedence. Even if they decline, we should not listen. And even if they decline, we should not listen to them. In other words, if they say, you don't have to honor me, we should not listen to them. This is all an aggrandizement of God may be exalted, since he took them and chose them for his service and to offer his sacrifices. So when you show honor to a Kohen, you're showing honor to God. This person is part of the divine service. And since he represents the divine service, by honoring him, you're honoring the divine service. There was a Gemara in Nedarim, in Tractate Nedarim, which we might have done maybe about 6 or 7 weeks ago, which asked the question, is the Kohen a representative of the people, or is a Kohen a representative of God? Is he shlucho shamakom? Is he an agent of God, or is he an agent of the people? And you have depending on the particular circumstance, there are times when he appears to be one, and there are other times when he appears to be the other. And it could be that he does in some way go back and forth between the two. But even if we do say that there are times when he's representing us to God, there are certainly many times when he is representing God to us. And you see this even in the Rambam's explanation for some of these mitzvahs. Again, you also see it of Shem Shafal Hirsch's. For instance, why is it an issue that a particular Kohen with a blemish serve in the Mishkan? Why is it a problem for him to serve in the Mishkan? Let's say he has a hunchback, and because of his hunchback, the Torah says that he is not qualified for service in the Mishkan or in the Beit HaMikdash. Why? What difference should there be if he has a hunchback? Clearly, God understands that this is no fault of his own. Certainly, shouldn't he be able to serve in a place that is all about God's values and what God cares about? Isn't the last place on earth that it should matter that somebody is a hunchback should be in the Mishkan? So one of the explanations that's given is that is true, but one of the roles that Kohanim play is a reflection of the divine service, and therefore we want that divine service to look as beautiful and as exalted as possible, and to no fault of his own. But the fact that this man is a hunchback, it doesn't give that impression to people looking from the outside. This is not a judgment of the person's character, but it is one of the roles of the Kohanim to reflect the divine and divine service. So this seems to be similar to what the Rambam is saying over here, that we are honoring these people because they reflect divine service. God chooses them to serve him, and because of that, they deserve our honor. He took them and chose them for his service and to offer his sacrifices, and this is his, may be exalted and may his name be blessed, saying, sanctify him, since he offers the bread of your God. Again, sometimes you could read that as he is God's representative to us, and sometimes you're reading it, this one sounds more like he is our representative to God. And the explanation appears, and sanctify him in every matter of holiness, to start first and to bless first, to take the nice portion. So you fulfill this mitzvah when you give the Kohen the first aliyah in shul. You fulfill this mitzvah when you let the Kohen be the one to do the Birkat Hamazon. You fulfill this mitzvah when you allow the Kohen to go first, if there's a line. All of these are fulfillment of this mitzvah to honor the Kohen. And the language of the Sifri is, and sanctify him against his will. This means to say, this is a command that we are commanded, and it is not the priest's choice. And likewise did they say, they shall be holy to their God, against their will, and they shall be holy to include those with blemishes. So this rule that you're supposed to show him honor even applies to the ones that are not able to serve because they have blemishes. This is so that you will not say, since this one is not fit to serve the bread of the Lord, why should we give him a level of priority and honor? Hence is saying, and they shall be holy, all of this honored seed, both blemished and unblemished, and the stipulations required by them, such that it will be fit to treat them with this practice, have already been explained in scattered places in the Gemara, in Chulin, in Shabbat, in Bechorot, and other tractates. So, for instance, let's say you have a Kohen who marries a divorcee. The Torah does not want a Kohen to marry a divorcee. Let's say a Kohen married a divorcee and they have a child. That child is called a halal. A halal means that they are now hollow or empty of that sanctity, and therefore their children do not get the first aliyah, and they are not accorded these other honors because this they are now empty of this kind of sanctity. There was it seems to be that the fact that they are, what was the language he uses here? They shall be holy. All of his honored seed, both blemished and unblemished, shall be holy. Now, this relates to the question that David asked at the beginning about the Torah scroll, which is not, which you can't read from, which we call puzzle. In fact, I think at the beginning of investigating that question as to what is the special sanctity of the Torah scroll, does that sanctity change when it no longer can be read? This is an interesting parallel that you have here with the Kohen who cannot serve in the Mishkan, because here they're making the point that they still deserve honor. They're still called holy. They're still called holy, even though they cannot serve in the Mishkan. I think this is a real nice parallel. Again, it's not a complete answer. It's like gathering data for that original question that David asked about the Sefer Torah, but I think this is a very nice parallel. He can't serve in the Beit HaMikdash, but we're being told he is still holy, and therefore he is meant to be shown all the deference that we saw. So when I was talking to David before, we were talking about how would the holiness be manifest? What's the practical ramification of the holiness? So here it would, with the person, it is these things where they're given how we show them honor is one of the ramifications of their holiness. Okay, so that's sort of cool.
Yuffie.
What?
I said yuffie. Beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yes, yeah. Okay. All right, so we're going to stop here with that, and then we're going to continue Bezrat Hashem Yitbarach Shemo on Monday. I'm very grateful for that we got to study together today, and I look forward to studying with you guys on Monday as we move forward in these mitzvot. Be well, guys.
Thank
Correct,
you.
Rabbi. Thank
Bye,
you.
Rabbi.
And
Right.
Chodesh Tov.
Chodesh Tov.